decides to go.
Okay, and I just got the Twitter notification that it's on Twitter, so or whatever. And
on the tweets, as the kids say.
It's on the Twitter. So can I?
Yeah, we can go. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, we are thrilled to welcome Armin Navabi to the Science Enthusiast Podcast. Armin is a former Muslim from Iran and the founder of Atheist Republic, author of Why There Is No God, and a co-host of the podcast Secular Jihadists from the Middle East. Welcome, Armin.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I know we've been wanting to do this with you for a while, so glad that we are finally, getting to sit down and talk to you.
Awesome.
We're going to start, and we kind of were talking a little bit before we came on air because we kind of want to hear your story, your journey from Muslim to atheist and to all you're doing now. But before we get started with that, as I was thinking about I went to your Twitter page, and I noticed your pinned tweet of your mom. And just to get some context for Iran and, kind of what you grew up in, there's a before and after picture of your mom on Twitter, before and after the Islamic Revolution in Iran. So can you kind of just give a little overview to set the stage of what that was and where you're coming from?
Yeah, well, my parents were born before the revolution in Iran, so they saw it go through. I was born in 1983, so when I was born, it all had happened. But the Iranians that were born in liberal families like me, we have always been told about how bad, how wrong they were to participate in the revolution, how good it was before the revolution. But to be fair, they sometimes exaggerate that because of the amount of regret that they have for the revolution. But this is the experience that people like me in liberal families have, right? Many people might, and here's the thing, when you talk to a lot of Iranians in the West, they usually are from the upper class, liberal demographic that come from Iran, and they usually represent Iran as if it's more liberal than it actually is sometimes, because they live in their own social bubbles in upper Tehran or in like a liberal part of Shiraz and stuff. But when I talk to them, or Westerners talk to them here, a lot of them sometimes mention that actually Iran is very liberal and everything goes. That's just a government that is very religious. But a lot of statistics actually show that many Iranians are religious, and the experience of people that live in these more liberal communities in Iran does not really reflect the entire country. And I think that when I say that, a lot of Iranians get upset with me because they have this religious image of Iran in the West that they're trying to fix, and I'm saying, well, statistics shows otherwise, and your experience with life of Iran, it was just your social bubble that you lived in, right? But my mom was actually one of the people that was part of the protests against Shah. But I remember she telling me the story that she was a nurse in a. I'll try to bring the screen share if I can of this picture that you're talking about. But she told me that, let me see here if I could do this. There we go. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So sorry for the people that are listening to this in the podcast. But she was a nurse, and I remember telling us that when she was in the hospital, and either on TV, either it was showing the picture of Khomeini coming down the plane, or it was of his speech in Behesh Zahra, one of these two. But when she was watching it along with other nurses in the hospital, she said something like, "Oh, we're fucked," right? And all the other nurses around her started looking at her, and some of them were really angry. And the next day, when she came back to the hospital, they had this banner up, and they had names on it, and her name was on it as well. And on top of it, it was saying the whores of the West, and it had all their names right on there. And yeah, so that was the beginning. At that time, hijab was
so it started out on a good foot, is what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as we're all on the same page here.
The cracking down had not started at that point yet, right? So, I mean, even hijab was not mandatory right at the beginning. But when they started introducing hijab, the woman didn't let go, didn't give up that easily, right? I mean, I didn't know about this until I came to Canada, right? They didn't tell us about this, but there was a march of thousands of women protesting against the mandatory hijab. Even hijabi women were protesting against mandatory hijab. They're like, you can't force people. So, when I'm watching the videos of these protests, I'm like, this is such a big deal. There are hundreds of thousands of them. Nobody told us about this. It's amazing. And it almost made me choke up when I watched it. And a lot of the chants that they were making during the protests, it made me realize how a lot of the progressive values that we fight for today, they're not new at all, because a lot of the things that they were saying seemed very progressive and very, it seems like stuff that we're still fighting for, right? One thing that they kept on chanting over and over again, and it really felt like to go in the face of what a lot of cultural relativists here try to advocate for, was they said, it's not Eastern, it's not Western, freedom is global. And they were basically responding to the accusation of these women being puppets of the West. And this chant was supposed to be saying that freedom is not from the West. Freedom is a global concept. Another chant that they kept on saying is like, we didn't do this revolution so that we could go backwards. So they were saying that we were trying to improve things. You're taking things back. Yeah. So it was amazing to watch. And my mom got arrested once, actually. My mom got arrested once because her hijab was red, which was too colorful. Ooh. And right now in Iran, colorful hijabs are common, right? But at the beginning of the revolution, that was too tempting to men, right? So she got arrested, and she had to go to mandatory lectures for being purified and being told how to be properly Muslim. And this lecturer, this lady, was telling her, why would you do this? Why would you do this to our young men that have sacrificed so much for this country? Why would you try to corrupt them like this? And my mom responded, no, you don't understand. My hijab was red in honor of the blood that they have sacrificed. So she was trying to out-bullshit them.
Did it work?
No, it didn't work. She had to still go to lectures, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, she tried. That's pretty good that she tried. Yeah. I like your mom. I mean, I like your mom.
And that's essentially how dare you threaten these men to not rape you? Like, what are you thinking about doing right now?
Yeah. Well, what they say is it's not that they're trying to stop rape. What they're trying to do is to stop, because even temptation and thinking about these things is a corruption already. It's a sin, right? So even if nothing happens, you already have corrupted the minds of young men just by them being attracted to you.
Just by existing.
Yeah. By the way, when I became an atheist, eventually I managed. Well, actually, all right. So my mom died as an atheist, right? But when she got cancer, I couldn't go see her in Iran because I wrote a book on why there is no God, and I started Atheist Republic, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to go see her, but she said, like, I don't want my last memory of you to be you being on death row, right? Mm-hmm. And she said that she didn't want to die without seeing me, right? So she decided to come to Canada, right? But the doctors told her that she should not by any means leave the hospital, and she said, I don't care. I don't want to die without saying goodbye to my son. So she did leave the hospital, and she came to Vancouver, Canada, and in Iran, she already was being taken care of. Here she came, and she was on a waiting list for a long time, and she died soon after. But she did say that, she did tell me that it's okay, because she was going to die anyways. She just didn't want to die without her family being next to her. So, but she did die much earlier than she had to, I think, because of it. So she's now buried in Vancouver. But yeah, and she made my dad promise her that when he goes back to Iran, there will be no Islamic ceremonies or prayers for her, which is custom in Iran, right? And my dad said that there was 3 different attempts at that, and because I promised her that would not happen, I managed to successfully cancel all 3. But people kept on trying to do it again and again. But he said no. She asked me not to let this happen, and she stopped them.
So she made sure she laid down the law, and
she was like, I don't want any Roza Khuni for me after that. Make sure that doesn't happen. So,
was your mom an atheist before you were an atheist?
No.
Do you think? No,
not at all. No. Yeah, my brothers, they didn't practice Islam, but they believed in God. All of them believed in God. I mean, everybody who doesn't believe in God in their mind? Like, of course there's a God, right? Like, yeah, these mullahs, they're always like, of course these mullahs and these religious people are lunatics, but God, come on, there's God, right? Mm-hmm. So when I did become an atheist, I did manage to, they asked me about it. I mean, it was a pretty easy sell, I think, for me, because they were pretty smart, right? So, and they got I don't want to talk about some people, but I'll talk about my mom, because nobody can get to my mom anymore. So I can tell publicly that she was an atheist.
And so for you were saying before when we were talking that you were pretty.
Yeah. So when I became very religious, I mean, logically, if there's a God, you have to be very religious. It didn't make any sense to me that people weren't religious. I was just being logical, to be fair, I think.
Of course.
But my parents hated it, because I kept on trying to make them pray, try to make them fast. I was like, you're going to go to hell. I was trying to, and they were so annoyed with me. In fact, when I eventually came out as an atheist to them, their first reaction was like, oh, thank God.
Like, he's going to stop bothering us now. He's going to leave us alone.
Yeah, like, they have this Basij in their house. Basij is like the Iranian religious police, right? And like, we have one 24/7 in our house, which is really annoying. But honestly, I still think I was very logical about this. I mean, how could you think that the creator of the whole universe wrote this book, and this is his word by word? Everything he says is coming from him, and you're reading Harry Potter. I've never read the Quran. Like, yes, that's the word of God, but I've never read it. Like, really, wouldn't you want to know what the creator of the freaking universe has to tell you, right? Or praying, right? Like, if I came to you and I said, I don't know, I have the president of so-and-so country on the line, and he wants to talk to you, you probably would take it, right?
Yeah.
And like, Well, the creator of the universe has given you the opportunity to talk to him 5 times a day. And you guys are like, none of you are taking the environment that I grew up in. Nobody was doing that, right? And like, how could people not do this? This is like the most important. Everybody around me seemed to be more worried about their grades, their career, what they're going to be wearing at the next party, if they can afford this car or not, the paint on the wall. But nobody seemed to be caring about their eternal life after this one, which includes the possibility of burning forever. Like, hello, you all believe in that. Nobody seems to be doing anything to try to avoid going there. Anybody, like, and then when I ask people about it, like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna end up there. Like, well, are you sure? I mean, even the remote possibility of it, isn't it enough for you to try to make sure that you're not going to be tortured forever? Nobody seems to be caring about that.
Why would you even like chance it and roll the dice for even once for one day?
Exactly. Actually, this is why I try to make sure I'm not taking any chances. Because here's the thing: I found a loophole in the system, and I took advantage of it, but I wasn't successful. But here's the thing. So here's the loophole in the system that I don't know why I didn't know then. It was surprising me then, and it surprised me still today that nobody took advantage of this loophole, right? So we were told that children don't sin. Sin is for adults, right? So based on our teachings, your sins don't start counting until you hit the age of reason. So you have like these angels around you, but they only start, one of them I think records your sins, the other one records the brownie points, but they start recording it only after you hit the age of reason, because it's unreasonable to expect a child to know right and wrong. It's not like Christianity when you have original sin, right?
So whenever a child has matured.
Well, yes, and for us, they said that for girls that age is 9, and for boys,
I was going to say it has to be 9,
yeah,
right?
It has to be pretty young still.
How is it not 9? That's where we really.
Yeah.
But for boys, it's 15.
How convenient.
Boys, it's 15.
Yeah.
Oh, so you got extra years compared to the girls.
Yeah, but they tried to sell this to us as if Islam was pro-women, because they said, like, look, this means that in Islam they think women mature are faster, like at a younger age, right? But later I realized that has more to do with the age of marriage more than their belief on who gets smarter fast, right? Because they just want girls should be available faster. But anyway,
right. I was going to say, just after that, he's like, "Oh shit, how old was she? Oh, she was 9. Yeah, 9. That's 9. That's what we're gonna go with. That's the age of.
That's the age of reason. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
At 9 years old, I had the whole world figured out. I mean, I know I'm a woman. I know that was when I just.
Yeah. Well, that comes from Aisha and everything. So besides that, when I basically said, okay, so anything I do before age 15 is not a sin. So you're pure. You're a ma'soom before age 15. So if you die before age 15, the only place you could go is heaven, right? So children, if they die, they go to heaven, right? Suicide is a sin in Islam, but guess what? Not if you do it before age 15, right? So I said, I can kill myself and guarantee heaven to myself. I want to make sure that I got this right, because we're talking about eternity here, right? So I went to talk to my religion teachers, and I asked them, why wouldn't I just kill myself to make sure I don't go to hell? And they told me, well, because if you don't earn heaven, you're going to go to the lowest part of heaven, right? Right. So heaven has many layers, right? The best part is for martyrs.
Heaven is like an onion.
So many layers.
Yeah. So the elite heaven is for martyrs, and they go where Muhammad is, right? And they don't even have to wait for Qiyamah or the Judgment Day. When they die, they go straight away to heaven, right? They get a express pass. So I so the only reason was that if you earn heaven as an adult, you go to a better part of heaven instead of just dying as a child. Dying as a child would just earn you the lowest part of heaven. I thought to myself, I just don't want to go to hell. I don't give a shit which part of heaven I go. When I was a kid, I actually tried this. I actually light up a match and I put it on my skin to see how much it hurts. And then I imagined that all over my body for years and years and years. I like nobody could tolerate that, right? And I was like, I just want to make sure that doesn't happen to me. You know, even a parking lot for eternity is better than burning, right? So anything is better. So, and yes, maybe you're gonna go to a better part of heaven if you tried, but seems like the dumbest gamble of all time. Why would I take the chance just because I'm greedy for a better part of heaven? No, not going to hell is good enough. So at around 12, I jumped out of my school window. I broke both my legs. I broke my left hand and I damaged my back. I was in a wheelchair and my bed for around 7 months. I missed 1 year of school. And the only reason why I didn't try it again was that I saw what it did to my parents, right? My mom went insane. I saw my dad cry for the very first time. And that was very traumatic. And you know, just seeing they became very depressed. And you know, I tried to sell it as an accident, but they could tell it was not an accident, especially because I took my watch off and gave it to my friend before I did it. Mm-hmm. So that was a big telltale sign. So they kept on sending me to shrink. They thought they thought I had depression issues. I didn't have any depression issues. I just didn't want to go to hell, right? My life was pretty good. And had no complaints about my life. In fact, the depression started after they kept on sending me to different shrinks and stuff to keep analyzing me, because they kept on trying to figure out why I jumped, and I kept on trying to tell them that I didn't jump because suicide is seen as such a taboo thing in Iran, as this like like a nut job, right? If you have psychological problems in the East are seen as much more shameful than here. Like people here, you know, as soon as you fight with your wife, you go see a counselor, which is good, which is healthy, right? But over there, if you go see somebody for mental issues, then you're a nut, right? And
so there's a stigma attached to it there.
Right? So I tried to convince them that I didn't jump. It was an accident. But nobody bought that. So yeah, but once I hit age 15, I was like, okay, this shit, I need to take it seriously. This game that nobody asked me if I want to play or not, and the consequences seem to be so, binary, right? There's no in between. You either go to the best place you could ever imagine or the worst fucking place you could ever imagine. There's no in between for people that are kind of okay, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to play this game, and the consequences are so huge. So I have to make sure I pray, I fast, and I thought, okay, I could do this. But here's the thing, though. I started reaching the age where boys might, at that time, start thinking about stuff that they're not supposed to be thinking about. And for my case, was girls, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with the God concept, God as a tyrant, is that he's the worst tyrant of all, because he's not just a tyrant of your actions, he's also a tyrant of your thoughts. So you know that you're sinning, and God can see that you're sinning when disgusting, quote unquote, disgusting thoughts come to your mind, and you feel so ashamed, right? If you believe in God and you see the creator of the universe that has given you so many things, has gifted you with a good family, with eyes that could see, with hands that could hold, with comfortable life and safety, and you pathetic, disgusting little kid can't even control your thoughts to not think about such horrible things, shame on you, and you beg for forgiveness and you say, I'm sorry, it will not happen again. But you're a teenager going through teenage stuff. Obviously, it didn't help that every day that I had to go to school, the girls' school, oh, by the way, it also doesn't help that boys and girls are separated, right?
Oh,
so
okay.
girls are these like, this thing that is, when you see, you have no experience, I mean,
Yeah.
you always think like the fact that you're separated, it makes it even tougher to deal with, right? And every day when you're going to school, they didn't design this very well, because the only way to get to my school was go through a lot of girls, right, that were trying to get to their, and I had my eyes low, look at the ground, and always say astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, make sure you're not sinning, and like don't look, and don't bring your eyes up, and you just go through all these girls, and then to get to your school, right? And it's just, and here's the thing, every time I think I had a disgusting thought, which is not disgusting, but at the time I thought it was disgusting. I was so ashamed. I begged for forgiveness, and I said it would never happen again, and it would happen again. But at least I had the luxury of telling myself, one day I will get married, and I will, repent for my past sins, and because I'm married, I could do whatever I want, and everything will be okay. But guess what if I was gay? Right?
Yeah.
Well, they have buildings for that, don't they?
Well, no, in Iran they hang you. But
oh, okay.
But
I meant buildings to throw you off of.
Yeah.
Oh,
no.
God.
That's ISIS. But
okay.
Yeah. So in Iran they have hanged a lot of people for simply being gay, which is
right.
I think the numbers estimate, these are really rough estimates, but the known rough estimates are around 3,000 so far. But even if you're never discovered, right? And you believe in these things, imagine what you think about yourself, right? And imagine going through that trauma all your life and being disgusted with who you are, being disgusted with your with your identity, and being ashamed of yourself all your life. Imagine the trauma that you have to go through. When people talk about the cost of Islam or religion, you usually think about wars and terrorist attacks and bombs here and there, but they never think about these added trauma or bad experiences or the miseries that women, gay men, gay women, transgender people, and even straight men and other people and minorities, all these, even people that don't get captured or killed or discriminated, these things that, imagine people that have never suffered but have wasted their entire life to this delusion that they could have spent on something more meaningful or made themselves more happy in a more better way. If you add up all these costs together, I think it will end up being more than even the misery from what gets on the news often. I think the cost of religion is way more than things that people usually point to, and it's a lot more subtle, and if you add it all up, it adds up to a lot of pain.
I think that that's a really good point, that it's the sum total of all of these internal struggles that people are dealing with and can't openly express. And I mean, I think that that's one of the great things about what you have built with Atheist Republic, is the fact that you can provide a community for people who are struggling in places where they can't receive that support. I mean, and I really, and like Dan and I have talked many times about how fortunate we are to have just kind of grown up kind of Catholic in America and have parents who, my parents kind of which is weird and hilarious, but how the privilege that comes with not having that internal struggle that so many people around the world have to deal with. So I think that that's a really good point that you bring up, that it's not just wars, it's internal wars, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah. And actually that's how it actually, the whole Atheist Republic concept started, because when I became an atheist eventually in Iran, I didn't know any other atheists. I was the only atheist I knew. But the only other atheists that I've heard of, and these were the atheists that were introduced to us in our religion class, were Stalin and Freud. So the sum total of the atheist world that I knew about was myself, Stalin, and Freud. And you can tell why they introduced those two to us, because they were basically trying to show you godlessness will either get you, I don't know, Stalin, or it gets you sexual perversion. That was basically their point. Yeah. So
one or the other. That's it. Take your pick if you dare to go down that route. Yeah.
And when I decided that this whole God thing is probably a con, I thought to myself, am I really that arrogant to think that I have figured out something that nobody around me has seemed to figure that out? Like, Armin, are you really that full of yourself to think that you're so smart that you figure this thing out and nobody around you seems to have figured this out? It's something that you think it seems pretty obvious, right? Maybe there's something wrong with me and these people are seeing something obvious and I'm just cuckoo or something, right? So I went on this website called Orkut. This is before Facebook was a thing, right? Orkut was a social network website by Google, and it was only popular in some countries. It was popular in Iran. It was popular in Brazil. I think at that time in the United States, people were mostly on MySpace. But I went on Orkut, and I started this community for Iranian atheists. And I didn't think much would come of it, but then very soon it got like 300 members. And we couldn't believe that we exist. So many people, when they joined, people would often comment, there's so many of you out there. Like, I thought I was crazy. And like, I thought I was crazy too. Right? And a lot of people like, I thought I was the only one. They're like, no, I thought, and it was so good. It felt like, hey, maybe I'm not crazy. Right? And then we shared our reasons why we think like that. And like, my reasons were different, and they're like, oh yeah, you have also a good point, I didn't think about that. And we kept on like, yeah, and we kept on sharing ideas, and like, that was so interesting. You know, I left Islam not because I had a problem with Islam. I left Islam because I couldn't find any reason for God, right? But so, and then people started questioning the verses in the Quran, because I think a lot of their path to atheism was not similar to mine. Theirs was a lot of them because they picked up the Quran and read it, and they were like, what the fuck? So that was that. But my path to atheism was like, when did I decide that there's a God? Like, how did I, like, you know, at what point did we all just agree that this thing is real? Like, and I was like, so I went to hunt for evidence, and I couldn't find any. And when I was studying the history of religion, it seemed like this whole thing was an obvious man-made concept, and I was like, how could anybody read this book and not see this, right? So that was my path to atheism, not having any evidence for God. But then I saw other atheists coming to atheism through other ways. And then we shared and I thought to myself that, you know, this is probably happening in many other places, right? Like, there's probably some atheists in Pakistan right now thinking that they're the only atheists in their community or somewhere else. I need to make it. So I made Atheist Republic, which was not location specific. And then eventually it became the largest online atheist platform in the world, but right now with 1,700,000 followers worldwide.
Which is amazing. Just that many people, but it shows that it's needed, and it shows that it's a desired thing and that's, I think, the beauty of social media, is the fact that people can connect in a way that they haven't in the past,
right,
and find that camaraderie and people that get them. And I think that's so important. And I mean, I'm sure, I think sometimes you guys post messages that you've received to your page of people who are struggling, right?
Yes.
Can you kind of speak to that and how that feels to be that person that people are talking to and reaching out to?
Well, I mean, I feel so sad that we can't do more. Right now, the only thing we can do is to show their message to other people. But I mean, what else can we do right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we need to first make people care before we could make people start taking actions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially in these countries that people consider too religious to do anything about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not. What the hell are you talking about? These countries had atheism and secular activism in them before the United States was even a country, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people dismiss countries like Iran, Saudi Arabia, or Pakistan, Bangladesh as like way too religious for us to have any hope for these countries, right?
Yeah.
But when we take the stories of people in Bangladesh, in Saudi Arabia, and in Iran, the struggles that they have to go through, and we share them, it's harder for people to just dismiss these people, right?
Yeah.
Because it's, human rights are global. Freedom is global, right? We shouldn't have higher standards for ourselves in Canada and United States than we have for people over there, right? Yeah. We should want the same things for them. And if you say well, this is their culture, well, that's a fucking shitty culture. If that's if your culture makes women inferior, if your culture involves hanging gay people, that's a culture that needs to fucking die, right? You can't just call things culture and demand that it stays just because it's a culture. Fuck that culture, right? And here's the thing: and a lot of people say, "Well, I don't understand those communities. I don't understand those. I understand our United States or Canada. That's why I could speak to." You know what? You don't have to understand them. You could highlight the people that are from there, right? You could do what you guys are doing. You're inviting ex-Muslims on your podcast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You invited Yasmin, you invited Faisal.
Yeah.
That's what you could do. You could bring them on your YouTube channel, on your blog, have them guest write. You could give a voice to the people that have been robbed of their voices. We in here are enjoying the luxury of freedom of speech. The least we could do is lend it to the people that don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you see stories come up was it last week that a group of atheists in Malaysia took a selfie, and holy shit! Right. Can you talk a little bit about what happened there? Because these are stories that come to us just through our Facebook feeds, or Friendly Atheist covering it, or something like that, and it's amazing to think that this is what happens.
Right, yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
So Atheist Republic has consulates in many different cities, and we call these consulates because we're like a republic. So these groups will also be consulate. Right. So basically, what these consulates are, they're basically just hangouts, right? They're just basically we made a community for every city, and we basically promote it on our main page, and we get people in every city to get together online and basically plan hangouts where they meet face to face, right? Because one thing we wanted, because we had this, so we have our public page, but we also have the largest private group, which with 70,000 members on Facebook for atheism. And a lot of times we notice somebody comes from Manila, Philippines, and says "Hey, I'm an atheist from Manila. Are there any atheists from Manila here?" And then he would get 150 comments. And everybody's like, "Holy shit, there's so many atheists around me. I didn't know." So we decided to make groups dedicated for each city so that people could meet atheists around them and know that not only they're not alone, there's actually so many of them in every city. Mm-hmm. And it was and once people got together, we came up with this idea to get a picture of yourself and send it to us, and we'll promote your consulate on the main page every time you do that. And we got so many pictures of so many different consulates with the Atheist Republic sign, and we send it to it. And whenever we post these, we get so many messages of support and so many encouraging comments. And the members in the cities loved it because they were always shamed and ostracized for being atheists. But now we have this large community of people saying "Yeah, go, good job for being open, and good job for finding each other." And it was so heartwarming, right? But all of a sudden, these people from Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, they saw that these consulates were doing it, and they're like, we're gonna do the same thing. And they had a hangout, and took a picture which was such a beautiful picture of all of them smiling and having fun, and they asked us to post it on the page. We make sure we ask for everyone's permission. The only person I think that we couldn't get a permission from, you see a piggy face on his face.
Yeah.
So I think we made sure that everybody consented, and they said post this, and we posted it, and they got a different reaction. And the reaction that they got was they got noticed by these Muslims in Malaysia and these Muslim bloggers, and they started shaming them, and then the death threats started coming in, and then the people kept on asking, isn't the penalty for apostasy death in Islam? People are like, where are these people? We need to find them. And this reaction went viral. Eventually it got, honestly, I never thought in Malaysia, of all places, it would go to this level. A lot of people are pointing my ignorance when I say this. Well, consider me educated. But eventually it got to this minister, and he said when he saw this, his reaction, and this is not an exaggeration of what he said, right? This is not us trying to over dramatize what's happening. He said, we need to hunt down these atheists. We need to hunt them down. That's what he said, right? Yeah. And imagine the level of stress that these people in this picture go through, because they have no idea what that means and what's going to happen to them, right? And there's the police was knocking at the door. Contacted one of the people in the picture, but before it got, I'm hoping that right now I haven't heard. So we got so much news coverage on this to try to signal to the officials in Malaysia that we're going to make this a fucking PR nightmare for Malaysia if we keep doing this, because you and Indonesia, Malaysia and Indonesia are always shown to the rest of the world that, look, Islam could be moderate as well. Look at these Muslim countries. They're not so bad. That's just Saudi Arabia. That's just Pakistan. That's just Bangladesh. Look at these countries. They're not misbehaving. They're Muslim countries. Well, that moderate label that you seem to enjoy means nothing anymore, right? And we're going to make sure that Malaysia and the word moderate can never be used in the same sentence again if you ever touch any of our members, right? And, so many people spread the story. Richard Dawkins tweeted it, Sam Harris did, Majid Nawaz did. It was covered so many, and and I think it got the message because there was some imams that came and said like, oh no, we shouldn't talk about it like this to atheists and stuff about atheists like this. So I think we got some good reaction out of it. But if this was about any other minority group, right? If, for example, somebody came and said, we need to hunt down all the Muslims in our country, or hunt down all the Jews in our country, or hunt down all the Christians in our country, this would be headline news. So we did get a lot of news coverage, but nothing compared to something like if a world leader, if a minister of a country came out and said, we need to hunt down the Jews or hunt down the Muslims. Right? And I say this, and I'm not to suggest that the reaction shouldn't be there. Obviously, if anybody comes and says, hunt down Muslims, there should be a huge reaction to that. But why are atheists not getting the same level of reaction? Why are we okay to discriminate against?
Because there's less of you. And what are you going to do?
Well, we have to get our shit together. We have to make the consequences a little bit bigger. That's why we have people like you and us and secular jihadists from the Middle East and all these other groups. We need to work together, and we need to make sure that we are protecting each other because no one else is.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you mentioned secular jihadists. So how did you all decide to come together and, I guess, provide a podcast that wasn't out there before.
So I first went to Faisal, and I told him it was going to be just me and him at first. I was like, do you want to start a podcast? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah, but but he said, I'm very busy, and like, don't worry, I'll make it flexible.
But I'm busy. Here's going to be the next words here. Okay.
I'll make it as flexible as possible. And he said, okay, sounds cool. And I made a graphic of just the two of us first, and I sent it to him, and he was happy. And then Yasmin came to us, and she said, whatever you guys are doing, I want to be a part of it. And Faisal said, come join us. And he was like, okay, I want to add somebody too. By the way, if Yasmin didn't join us, this whole thing would be not happening, right? Because
she's awesome.
Yeah, because she organized so many of the things that would have not happened if we wouldn't even have a single guest without her. But so, and then I was like, we need some star power, right? So I went to Ali, and I was like, Ali, do you want to join our podcast? Ali was like, hell yeah. And I was like, oh, awesome, this is great. We have and we are a pretty diverse team. So now it's me from Iran, Ali is from Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. Yasmin is from Canada with an Egyptian background. And Faisal is from Iraq. So we're like ex-Shias, ex-Sunnis, different countries, different experiences. And the good thing about this podcast, and by the way, right now it's the only ex-Muslim podcast out there, right? Hopefully there will be more. But the good thing about secular jihadists is that we don't agree, right? And in a lot of our episodes, you can see us fighting each other, and that's a great thing because you're not going to get one opinion when you listen to our podcast. You're gonna see a diverse opinion from different ex-Muslims based on their experience and their understanding of how things are, which is, I think, pretty good. Yeah.
So we asked friends if they had any questions, and I kind of want to go to a question from our friend Nathan that has to do with criticizing Islam. So here's a question that Nathan came up with. So he said he's interested in hearing your perspective on why so many atheists / secular humanists in Western countries often seem unwilling to criticize Islam. He says, is this less of a problem in the atheist community at large and more something that happens along political party lines? I mean, I guess really, like, do you see people unwilling to criticize Islam?
Not from ex-Muslims where I come from, but I think in United States, the right has a bigotry problem, right? And
yes,
so the left wants to be as far from that as possible. So anything that slightly resembles to what they are saying should be untouchable and taboo, right? And they are confusing. So the right, but by the way, I'm not saying everybody on the right is a bigot, but they do have to accept that they have a bigotry problem, right? They have to admit that, right? Within their community. And admitting that will maybe help them fix it. But first step is to admitting it. But the thing is that, so these bigots, and the thing with the atheist movement is that it's mostly people from the left. Hopefully we will be more diverse eventually, but many of the people from the atheist movement are from the left. And so the atheist movement, because it's very left-leaning, and because they don't want to be associated with the right, they want to step away from people that sound like the right. And the bigots in the right don't have an Islam problem; they have a Muslim problem, right? But we have a problem with Islam. They don't really care about what these people believe in, because as long as they're a certain color or coming from a certain country, that's their issue with these people, right? And the problem that we have with Islam is not the same as having a problem with Muslims, right? The main the main victims of Islam are Muslims, right?
Yes.
And even if they weren't, right? The example usually people give is that just because I'm against cancer doesn't mean I'm against the cancer patient, right? And that's what we used to say, like, just because we're against Islam doesn't mean we're against Muslims, right? But even if Muslims were not against victims of Islam, being wrong is not a crime, right? So I'm not going to condemn people or see them as inferior just because I think they are wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I'm wrong about many things, right? And I appreciate people pointing them out to me, right? But if you're wrong, that doesn't mean that anybody should mistreat you because they think you're wrong about your world ideology. But you shouldn't expect others to also not point out that this is wrong, right? And pointing out that we think you're wrong should not be considered an attack on you personally, right? Especially when we don't force it on you. When you see our anti-Islam content, you have to come and find it, because we are putting these on our platforms, on our atheist Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, books, podcasts, right? If you find my book offensive, guess what? Here's an easy solution.
Don't read it.
Don't read it.
Yeah.
Right?
Unfollow you on Twitter. Go away from the Facebook page. Like,
Yeah, and if you don't know, if you're seeing our Facebook content and you don't know how to block us, I will teach you how to block our page.
Literally, I took a video of myself unliking my page, and I said, "This is what you need to do."
Yeah,
you offer a tutorial.
Because I is of course, but yeah, and kind of going back to what you said, like I don't know that it's so much that I think the more rational people that are who we would classify on the left, I think they absolutely don't want to be associated with the right, and especially the shit going on with the far right. But I think it's more for a lot of people, especially the further left we go, they see a group of people who are, at least in the U.S., absolutely treated poorly by a lot of people on the right. And I think even more than anything else, they see that and they just feel like they have to treat them with kid gloves, that they can do no wrong, that anything that they say or do is my fault because I'm just this stupid white person who doesn't know any better. And look, they have this beautiful culture that because I think it's beautiful because it's somewhere else and I don't see
I've seen white people apologize for slavery. I asked them, do you own a slave? And they're like, no. Then why are you apologizing for slavery? I don't know. But I mean, so to respond to that, actually, this makes part of the left responsible for Muslims being discriminated against, right? Because by silencing people that are not anti-Muslim, that could possibly have civil discussions with Muslims about religion, the Muslims that are willing to, right? Not force them to listen to you, right? By silencing that debate, by taking that platform away for people that could have had civil discussions with each other, you made the platform only available to bigots that are anti-Muslim instead of being anti-Islam. The disaster that is Trump is a result of the PC culture that that a lot of the left is responsible for, right? Because you can't silence bullshit. If you try to silence bullshit, it will come back as a diarrhea and explode in your face, right? If the only way to silence bullshit is with good shit, okay? You have to fight bad ideas with good ideas. You can't silence people. And you weren't silencing bad ideas. You were silencing ideas. And you stole this platform from us. And a lot of people predicted this. One person that predicted this was Sam Harris, right? Before it happened. he suggested that if you not let people like us speak, at some point the alt-right would be the only force against Islam, and you're gonna see alt-right movements, the rise. And people took that and accused him of saying like he's suggesting that he's supporting the alt-right. I'm like, no, that was not a support of the alt-right. That was a warning that this is what's going to happen. And guess what? He was right, and it happened.
So you're saying it was a warning in a sense that saying, well, this will happen if everybody doesn't come together to criticize the ideology instead of the people?
He was saying that if you take away the voice of well-meaning people that could have had several discussions with Muslims, you're basically making the only people with a voice against Islam the alt-right. You're gonna make them the only voice that is heard. You're gonna make their movement grow faster, because that's the only movement to go to when you're looking for any force against Islam. If you're afraid, if you don't know what this is, should I be afraid or not? Those are the only people with a voice. And this is why we started the Secular Jihadist podcast, because we said like, oh, the left is not giving us a platform, the right is giving us a platform, but we don't know the agenda. They seem to be having a different agenda for giving us a platform than what we want to do. What should we do? Like, fuck the left, fuck the right. Let's make our own platform, right? We shouldn't be waiting for people to giving us an audience. We make our own audience, and that's why we made the Secular Jihadists from the Middle East. But
I like that though, making your own platform.
Yeah.
When you have like an idea that you want to spread, and that's probably an important thing, because it gave the four of you some control over your message. And
right. Especially because we don't have sponsors, right? We have the good thing about platforms like this podcast that you're listening to, or Secular Jihadist, is that it's fan funded, right? And because it's fan funded, we don't have to be worried about like a big sponsor all of a sudden pulling away or saying something that is too controversial. We can say what we want to say, right? And the only people that we are worried about is our fans. Those are the people that we are trying to reach out to, right? And this is why, if you have a content provider that you like, if you are listening to this podcast and you're a fan, you have to consider donating to them, or if you can't afford it, you could at least leave them a review, right? Because YouTube is deplatforming people and demonetizing channels. Facebook keeps removing offensive
yeah, we didn't even talk about that yet, have we?
Oh yeah, that whole thing.
So when people, but just my point is, when you see content providers like this podcast that you're listening to make their own feed, and support them, because this is the future of speech, right? People not having to rely to others for a platform. So support the people that you're a fan of. But yeah, go on. Sorry, you were.
Dan, were you gonna bring up his?
Well, yeah, because we both. I think it was about the same time, and a couple different times. I think for both of us, where we had our pages unpublished by Facebook. So, of course, mine was I think a post regarding chicken nuggets, which is not the secular fight that we're looking to fight here. So we can kind of. I'm not. Wait,
joking. What was your post about? Why did you? Was this vegan?
It was a woman holding a chicken nugget or a chicken, like a baby chicken, then another one holding a chicken nugget, and it just said Transformation Tuesday, and I posted on a Tuesday, and then. From what I hear from certain people, is there were a lot of vegans that were upset about that. Somehow took that as a shot against them. Yeah. Which nowhere in it did it say anything about them. No. But yeah, and I see people hashtagging Nuggetgate in the comment section right now. So yeah,
I didn't know the vegans.
Chicken nuggets.
I didn't know the vegans were as sensitive as the Muslims that attacked our page.
Well, right, and that's the thing. That's the thing, is it didn't even at no point did it even address that. I've been very pro-vegan to anybody that's ever actually had a conversation. We've had Jason Merkley of Vegan GMO on the show before, and I have people message me all the time, what are your stance on veganism? Yeah, if I could put down a fucking cheeseburger, I would go vegan, but have you had
people
cheeseburger?
Lost their shit over the nuggets. Yeah. But yeah,
Wow.
so he got taken down over nuggets. You had a slightly different story.
Well, I tell people we were being. This is the third time we were taken down. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people Jesus died and was resurrected once. We died and came back 3 times. So
Atheist Republic, checkmate atheists on that one.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair to Facebook, it's really hard to review every report, especially if you're this big as Facebook is.
Yeah.
Right.
So they do rely on automated reports. And to give credit to these Muslims that reported us, they are pretty freaking organized, right? They have
groups of tens of thousands of
templates. They have templates for what to do. They have pictures. You click on this and make sure you all reported for the same thing, or else if the reports are too diverse, Facebook is not going to take it seriously. So, like I said, then follow this link, click this, and and it's in Bangladesh, right? And I think, there's actually a very detailed reporting. Somebody went into the group and did a really good job at documenting what they do, and it seems pretty funded, right? And whoever's funding it, probably maybe Saudi Arabia or somewhere or something like that, but whoever's funding these, they picked a good country because Bangladesh is very cheap to hire people, right? But you have these people that are managing it, which they're probably hired, but the tens of thousands of people that are listening to them, they just think that they're doing their religious duty, but by fighting anti-Islamic content online, right? So they have groups, secret groups, and they tell people like, this page needs to be taken down. Fight for Allah, take this page down, right? And just
fight for Allah on Facebook.
On Facebook,
right? This is
doing God's work.
I'm sure that's in one of the hadiths, I think.
Yeah. Is online jihad, but but the thing is that it always backfires. I want them to note that every time we come back, our fan base jumps a lot. Like, we get so many people that would have not known about us if it wasn't for the news coverage and the attention that we got from the fact that we were taken down, right? So they please come, do it again. I mean, it seems like, but just do it to us. Don't do it to smaller pages. And here's the problem with this, okay? So for them, it did backfire every time. But there's a lot of smaller pages that have went down and never got back up because they didn't have as loud of a voice as we did, right? So if anybody is listening to this, and I want to make this offer, that if smaller pages, because we don't want the world to just be you guys and Atheist Republic and big groups like Ex-Muslims of North America and Council of Ex-Muslims of Great Britain. These are really good groups that have done a lot, but we want to also make room for new activists, right? And if you have a page that just got to 5,000 and you feel so encouraged and all of a sudden it's taken down, this is basically, you get so demotivated, you're going to give up. You basically, these are people that were future activists that were defeated, and now they're so discouraged to ever try again. They worked so hard to get to 5,000, right? So if your page gets taken down for no good reasons, if you're being racist, well, fuck you, right? But if your page was being taken down and unjustly, please come to us. Atheist Republic gets too many messages and notifications to notice most of the messages. So maybe come to me on Twitter personally, at Armin Navabi. So and tell me that your page was taken down, and we'll try to bring more attention to it. Right? No promises. Don't tell me, our page was never. You promised us to bring our page back, and our page didn't come back. No, what I promise is, 1, we'll bring attention to the fact that your page was taken down, and 2, if you don't get your page back and you make a new page, put some content on it, and we'll share it from your page to Atheist Republic so it gets some momentum. So,
and I mean, I could say same for me, because I have, I don't know how many pages I have, at least 10. At least 10 different ones I run with probably over 2 million total followers across them all. So there's that. And then there's also, I think it's important to get involved in actual the groups, not the pages on Facebook, but the groups that are in there. So you have some sense of community. So you have that backing that way, because whenever I got taken down for chicken fucking nuggets, I think I restarted a page, because I had no idea. It said you have this one appeal, and if you don't win the appeal, you're gone forever. So I'm sitting there, I'm deleting anything in the last month that I posted that has anything to do with Islam, anything to do with race, anything. I feel like Facebook's gone a little regressive, which is the topic of another podcast. Anything that was even slightly critical of far left.
I don't think that matters. I think because my personal Facebook page was taken down once for nudity, and
well, I guess I have to pay better attention to your.
We were fully clothed. Okay, it was me and my wife.
Oh, well.
But so I think when it comes to mass reporting, it really doesn't matter. This is okay, and I'm glad I didn't forget to mention this. This is why the ex-Muslims of North America, they started a petition for pages like ours and theirs and yours that gets taken down often. And if you want to search for that petition, you could use you could search for the hashtag Let Ex-Muslims Speak. And basically, in this petition, they're trying to reach out to Facebook and say, it should be on their website somewhere, but and they're trying to say, like, when you notice that there are some pages being attacked unjustly and are already been taken down and come back, and you know what you could do. We understand that you don't have the resources to check all the reports, but the suggestion is to add some groups that are sensitive like this to a whitelist, and not make them immune from being taken down. Not that, but once the reporting triggers an unpublishing, then for those pages, get a human to come and actually check if this was justified or not, right? And I think that's a very good suggestion that they're making, right? I mean, Facebook keeps on trying to act like they are the,
give a shit.
I mean,
okay, sorry.
The force.
I'm not happy with Zuckerberg right now. If
why? Well, how so?
We can maybe I might have 3 personal accounts right now, or I know of somebody with 3 personal accounts right now, that are unable to post or do anything right now because of one of them was a post about Islam, and we can talk about this off the air, like what page that was on. I think you might appreciate it, but I don't publicly own it. But yeah, and here's the thing though, these fucking Nazis, they're gonna make the reaction to people like us even more, right? Because people are gonna demand more. Yeah, go ahead. That's something I don't understand, how we, with people like you, me, and others that get taken down or get post deleted or can't post. Like I couldn't, throughout the month of June, I could not post a link for anything because supposedly the reason they gave was I was posting fake news, which I have to assume I had just posted a bunch of like pro-vax vaccine stuff. So I think
the anti-vaxxers, they swarm to that stuff
from all sides.
Yeah.
And so
the anti-vaxxers are dangerous. I wish they knew.
Well, it's a religion.
Yeah,
it's a religion, and religions are inherently dangerous.
Yeah,
and I don't know where I was going with that, but but oh yeah, like people like Milo and whoever that, I don't follow these people that closely because they are horrible people, but I don't understand how these groups and these people who say just the worst shit, even if it's not being said on Facebook, I don't understand how they are able to get away with this stuff, and as targetists, like you want to fucking punch a Nazi, well, they're probably more effective to mass report them if that's really your goal is to shut them up. Like you can actually.
But you have to put yourself in position of Facebook and YouTube. I mean Google in general is that they need to worry about their funding, right? And their sponsors will pull out if they have like videos of Nazis, you know, and they're basically getting paid from Nazi content, right? So their sponsors were like, I don't want to have anything to do with that if you're not going to be careful about these things, right? And YouTube and Facebook, they rather overshoot than under, because you know the damage from people like us being taken down, the damage to them is very little, right? Mm-hmm. But the damage from a big sponsor all of a sudden pulling out of Facebook or Google because they say like, I don't want to be associated with a place that allows fucking Nazis to promote their shit, right? That's a big cost to them, right? So they rather be, you know, overdo it than underdo it. And this is why people like us, when we're talking in this area that people need to listen to us. It's not that black and white as people think. People have to, you know, it's because we're talking with nuance. People could take us out of context and make us sound racist or make us sound like we're this and that. And you know, but our fan base that actually listens to us in its entirety, they know what we're saying, and they know that we're not bigots, that we know that we're fighting for human rights and humanitarian values. So humanist values. So this is why the next wave. So the wave of social media was a really good thing for people like us, because I mean, as much as we complain about Facebook, we wouldn't have this large of an audience if it wasn't for Facebook, right? So thank you, Facebook, but we need to also start looking beyond them, right? Because we need to start making a new wave of content providing content, and that's the way for people to be independent from Facebook and Google and other platforms, for people to be able to come to us directly, and nobody could take our audience away from us. Right. And this is independent play. And podcasting is one of the first and most effective ways of doing that, right? Because once you have a feed, nobody can take that feed away from you, right?
Yeah. So I mean, that's the importance of creating content and being able to spread a message and reach as much of an audience as possible, and finding all these different ways to do it. And obviously that's been something that, you know, you and Dan have both been really successful at. And I know you both likely have received a lot of different messages from people saying thank you for what you do, because it is important to put all of this out into the world. So actually, can I tell you about my next project? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we would love to hear what you're like up to next, and then where people can find all of your work. So
on Atheist Republic, when you go to our website, there's usually this, on almost every page, there's this green button where you could click and you could record your audio, right? So what we're doing is that we're making a podcast called Atheist Republic Voicemails. And what it is a podcast with no hosts, except everybody gets to be a host. So we're giving atheists all around the world a chance to leave a voicemail, and the podcast will just basically be messages from one atheist, and then another message from another atheist, one maybe from Pakistan, another from Philippines, then another one from Bangladesh, then one from Russia. And this is just going to be atheist voices from all around the world. And this is basically just being true to the fact that we consider ourselves a republic. Like, we don't want to control things. This is Atheist Republic is just to be a platform where it gives a voice to atheists everywhere. And so we thought, how better to do that than to make the Atheist Republic podcast not a podcast with us talking to people, but a podcast where people get so easily to have an audience. Like, we will give you the audience that you don't have. Like, your voice will basically make it louder. Just leave a voicemail, and we'll select the voicemails, and we'll just put it in, and that's our podcast. So that's going to be Atheist Republic voicemails. And right now we're collecting voicemails. So if you want to leave a voicemail, just go to atheistrepublic.com and leave a voicemail there.
Oh, that sounds like a really cool project.
Really
That's
cool.
just like a collaborative, collective podcast, and yeah, just to give people voices and reach your audience. So that's a really, really cool idea.
Yeah.
So we've loved having you on talking to us tonight, and I'm guessing we'll probably invite you back sometime because there are probably so many different conversations that we could have about different topics.
Yeah,
I feel like we need to talk more about chicken nuggets too, but
so many things.
I'm hungry now.
Right, I know Dan's making everybody hungry. So where to like wrap up, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, you can find Atheist Republic on atheistrepublic.com. And over there, we link to our Facebook page, our Google Plus, our Twitter, and Instagram. Everything you can find on atheistrepublic.com. And you could also support Atheist Republic by going to atheistrepublic.com. You can find the secular jihadists from the Middle East by just, on any device, any app that gets podcasts. You could find secular jihadists from the Middle East. So iTunes, Pocket Cast, Stitcher, Google Music, we're everywhere. And please, if you'd like us, leave us a review, and leave this podcast a review as well, and share it with your fellow heathens. And you could find me personally on Twitter, and my handle is @Armin Navabi.
Thank you. And thank you so much for doing this with us tonight. And we will share this all over when it's, all done. And thank you.
Yeah, and let me know so I can share it with our Atheist Republic followers as well. This was really fun, by the way. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
All right.